I bought is Ash by Melinda Lowe. I've heard a lot about this one. It's quite an old one. I'm not sure when it was first published. 2009, so this is 12 years old now. This is a queer Cinderella retelling with Ash as the Cinderella equivalent, who falls in love with Kaiser, who is the huntress for the king. So the back cover for Ash says, in the wake of her father's death, Ash finds herself a servant in the house of her ruthless stepmother. In her dreams, someday the fairies will steal her away, and when she meets the dark and dangerous fairy Sidine, I don't know how to pronounce that, it looks Irish, so it's probably a completely different spelling, she believes that her wish may be granted. The day that Ash meets Kaiser, the king's huntress, her heart begins to change. Instead of chasing fairies, Ash learns to hunt with Kaiser. Their friendship reawakens Ash's capacity for love and her desire to live. But Sidine has already claimed Ash for his own, and she must make a choice between fairy tale dreams and true love. So, yeah, dark, queer, a fairy tale retelling. So this will definitely fit some sort of prompt in a readathon, probably. I think it'll be a good one for Spoopathon, which is Spoopy Hole's spooky October readathon. Sounds dark and foresty, so I have high hopes for that one. Although the bookseller did tell me it's a Marmite book and it's a bit controversial, and some people love it and some people hate it. So I don't know. I did love the Last Night at the Telegraph Club, which is the only other Melinda Lowe book that I've read, which is also a queer story, which is, I can't remember the names of the characters, but I think the protagonist was an Asian girl in San Francisco in 70s maybe? I can't remember. It could have been a lot earlier than that. But that was a really good historical, sapphic, sort of sprawling tale. The next book that I picked up is An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. I've heard a lot about this one, and I've been trying to get my hands on it for a good couple of years now, but it's always been either really expensive or just not in stock, because I didn't know that it was published in the UK. I don't think it was. They do seem to have a lot of American stock in queer lit, so that was quite exciting. A lot of books you wouldn't usually see on bookshelves here. This one, I have heard from quite a few people that I know and trust that it's a great read. This was recommended to me by my friend Davin, who wrote The Invincible Summer of Juniper Jones, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. I think this is going to be quite a heavy story. It's set on a spaceship. I think it's a spaceship? Let's just see. Yes, a space vessel, the HSS Matilda, and it's about race and sexuality and gender and discrimination. So from the back it says, Asta has little to offer folks in the way of rebuttal when they call her ogre and freak. She's used to the names, she only wishes there was more truth to them. If she were truly a monster, she'd be powerful enough to tear down the walls around her until nothing remains of her world. Asta lives in the low-deck slums of the HSS Matilda, a space vessel organised much like the antebellum South. For generations, Matilda has ferried the last of humanity to a mythical promised land. On its way, the ship's leaders have imposed harsh moral restrictions and deep indignities on dark-skinned sharecroppers like Asta. Embroiled in a grudge with the brutal overseer, Asta learns there may be a way to improve her lot if she's willing to sow the seeds of civil war. So yeah, dark and heavy, and I've heard there's a lot about gender and sexuality as well in this, and it was in queer lit. So yeah, it's one of those I'm quite apprehensive to pick up because I know it's probably going to hit quite hard. But it sounds like a really deep and important read, and it's been on my want to buy list for years, so I hopefully will get around to this in October. The third and last of the paperbacks that I bought is All of the Above by Juno Dawson. This is a reprint of a 2015 book of the same name, and I think the characters are pansexual, at least the cover is very pansexual. So it's one that I think I probably have avoided before just because it had an ugly cover, so I didn't really think about it, but I saw Juno's tweet about the reprint, so I was very excited to find a copy of it in queer lit. So if you've ever read a hotkey book before, you know that on the back they have a little guide to what's in the book. This one just says boy, girl, girl, boy, which I like. So from the back it says, It would be neater, wouldn't it, if this was a story about self-harm or sexuality or eating disorders or ridiculously hot bass players, but it's a story about all of them. Yeah, it's a mess, and it's about to get messier. When 16-year-old Toria moves to the faded seaside town of Brompton-on-Sea, she doesn't expect to fall in love once, let alone twice. But life has a habit of pulling you in strange directions, and when it comes to the matters of the heart, sometimes you just have to let go, be free, and let love choose you. This sounds like, a cute YA, messy romance, figuring stuff out. I love the new cover. I'm so glad they changed it. I don't know how well that's focusing, but it's really pretty. And this sounds like the sort of book that I would have loved to have been able to read when I was a kid, like when I was sort of 15. Might have made things a lot easier for me back then. Onto the hardbacks that I got from Queer Lit. There are 3 of these. The first is In the Role of Brie Hutchins by Nicole Melleby. Never heard of this one before, never seen it before, but the cover really stood out to me. So that's the whole reason I picked it up, and you know it's going to be queer because it's in a queer bookshop. So this cover paired with a definitely queer book, I couldn't not pick it up. So the inside flap says, introducing Brie Hutchins, so-so student, aspiring actor, soap opera superfan. Brie has big plans for 8th grade. Her first goal is to be the star of the school play, but when Brie's mum walks in on her accidentally viewing inappropriate photos of her favourite actress, Brie panics and blurts out that she's been chosen for a very important event at school. It works. Brie's mum is distracted with pride, but Brie's in big trouble because she's not been chosen. No one has. Worse, Brie has almost no chance because their honour always goes to a top student. Desperate to make her lie become truth, Brie turns to a girl named Kennedy for help, but sometimes just looking at Kennedy gives Brie butterflies. Juggling her new feelings with the pressure to keep her mum proud of her, not to mention her hilarious non-star turn in the school play, Brie navigates truth and lies, expectations and identity, and searches for a way to finally get her mother to see her as she is. So this is sort of middle grade-ish. I think 8th grade is like year 9, so 13, 14. So yeah, definitely on the younger side of YA. But I am trying to read a lot more younger books at the moment. I'm trying to get into more middle grade after watching videos by people like Gav and Jade. And this sounds so cute. I need to stop describing everything as cute. I don't have a good vocabulary when it comes to describing books, apparently. Who'd have thought I'm a writer? The next book is Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland. I've heard bits about this one, not much, and I think only because I went searching about the author after she was featured in an Illumicrate box. So this is about Kamai. I think it might be Portal Fantasy. I'm not fully sure. Let's read the flap. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. We'll see. Kamai was warned to never open the black door, but she didn't listen. Everyone has a soul. Some are beautiful gardens, others are frightening dungeons. Soul walkers, like Kamai and her mother, can journey into other people's souls while they sleep. But no matter where Kamai visits, she sees the black door. It follows her into every soul, and her mother has warned her never to open it. When Kamai touches the door, it is warm and beating, like it has a pulse. When she puts her ear to it, she hears her own name whispered from the other side. And when tragedy strikes, Kamai does the unthinkable. She opens the door. And then there's an extra bit that says it's a dark fantasy featuring court intrigue and romance, and a main character coming to terms with her asexuality. And that's what made me pick this up, is the asexual representation. I can only think of one book I've read where the character is explicitly asexual, and that is Loveless by Alice Oseman, where the protagonist is figuring out her sexuality and why she feels different to her friends. And that was an absolutely fantastic book. So I'm very excited to find another one that has asexual representation. I like the Kirkus review on the back, which says, lovers of dark fantasy and edgy romance will enjoy this tale, which gives the stage to an asexual protagonist. That sounds right up my street. So the last book that I got from Queer Lit is an adult contemporary, which is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. I've heard this, I think I maybe came across it on NetGalley. I'm not sure if I ever got approved for the e-arc, so I may well have it on my Kindle. But I keep seeing this around and being tempted by it, and yeah, they had it. I was in the mood to buy, and I went to Queer Lit with the full intention of spending quite a bit of money. so I was prepared to pick up like 15 books if I wanted to. Luckily, there were only 6 that stood out. But from the inside flap of this one, meet Gilda. She cannot stop thinking about death. Desperate for a relief from her anxious mind and alienated from her repressive family, she responds to a flyer for free therapy at a local church and finds herself abruptly hired to replace the deceased receptionist Grace. It's not the most obvious job. She's queer and an atheist for starters, and so in between trying to learn maths, hiding her new maybe girlfriend, and conducting an amateur investigation into Grace's death, Gilda must avoid revealing the truth of her mortifying existence. A blend of warmth, deadpan humour, and pitch-perfect observations about the human condition, Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead is a crackling exploration of what it takes to stay afloat in a world where your exploration, and the exploration of those you love, is the only certainty. So this sounds like sort of dark humour. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one with the sort of religious aspect of her working in a church as a queer person, as an atheist, as a queer atheist. I have a lot of hope for this one, especially from the title. It just seems kind of deadpan, sort of dark. BuzzFeed describes it on the back as the perfect blend of macabre and funny, which is exactly the sort of thing that I love to read. So I'm very excited to pick this one up. Hopefully, if I have a prompt that fits it when I do Spoopathon and roll some Bookopoly rolls for October. I keep trying to fit everything into October. I don't think I'm going to get all these read next month because there are TBR games going on and readathons. After I left Queer Lit, I got a bit turned around in Manchester trying to find somewhere to eat, and I got lost in the, I think it's the Armsdale shopping centre or Armsdale, and I found a Waterstones. So of course I had to go into Waterstones, and I picked up 2 books in the buy one get one half price sale, both of which are spooky and perfect for October. So these 2 I really want to get onto my October TBR, hopefully for Spoopathon, trying to exit the haunted house. And the 2 I got are House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland and What Big Teeth by Rose Zarbo. I'm really glad I spotted this one because the American cover version is on my Amazon wishlist, and I just happened to be passing by the fantasy section, which I don't usually go into, and this was on the sale table, and it has a completely different cover, so I almost walked past it, but then it did stick out. It's quite distinctive. So the back of this one is: Eleanor Zarin has always been estranged from her wild family ever since they sent her away to boarding school. She knows Simonia's vague memories, her grandfather's tremendous fanged snout, fortunes read in the guts of birds, and strange hunting games in the woods with her sister and cousins. When Eleanor finally returns to her ancestral home on the rainy coast of Maine, a sudden death rocks the household. In order to keep the family from falling apart, Eleanor calls upon her mysterious grandmother from across the sea. At first, Grandmère brings order to the chaotic Zarins, but that order soon turns into a deep-rooted wickedness. If any of them are to survive, Eleanor must embrace her strange family and confront the monstrousness lurking deep within Grandmère and herself, and is described by Kirkus as shadowy, gothic, and labyrinthine. So this is a perfect sort of Halloween-y, spooky pick. It's very intriguing. It's not the sort of thing I would usually pick up, but I have been on the lookout for spookier books with October coming, and everyone that I follow seems to be in the Halloween-y spooky mood. So I want to try and get into that, especially with the weather getting darker and colder. Summer has definitely left the building. So the next one, House of Hollows by Crystal Sutherland. I think I've DNF'd a Crystal Sutherland before, but it was nothing like this, and it did have lower ratings on Goodreads anyway. This one has well over 4, and the cover is, I mean, that sticks out. I was drawn to that instantly. It's quite creepy. It looks like she's crying blood. I think it might just be from a cut. So the back of this one says, dark and dangerous things happen around the Hollow sisters. Ever since they disappeared as children, only to reappear a month later with no memory of what happened to them, odd, eerie occurrences follow in their wake. When Grey, the eldest, goes missing again, Iris and Vivi are left to figure out the mystery, but they aren't the only ones looking for her. As they brush against the supernatural, Iris realises that the world that returned them 10 years ago might be calling them back, but just how much horror lies beneath the surface. So the Hotkey Books Guide to What's in This says glamour, horror, unravelling clues to somewhere unknown. So that doesn't give a ton away, but it definitely sounds eerie I mean, the cover itself is eerie, and I mostly picked it up because it was also in the buy one get one half price, so it was like £4, and give it a chance. So there we go, that is my book haul from my very impromptu trip to Manchester. There's quite a range of books on here. I've got some YA, adult, I've got contemporary and fantasy and fairy tale retellings, so yeah, quite a mixed bag. It was really exciting and satisfying to go into a bookshop and have so much that I wanted to buy. I don't often get that with UK bookshops, either just because I've come across it all, I've read it all, or it's just not my sort of thing. So to have a queer bookshop meant so much, because you know every single book there, it's either got queer characters or it's by a queer author, which is really exciting. I spend so much time in Waterstones flipping through back covers trying to figure out if a book is queer or not, and this took all the guesswork out of it, because you know it's queer lit, it's gonna be queer. I think there's a bookshop in London as well that caters fully to queer books, so I will have to find that one and go and check it out next time I'm in London, which I don't know when that'll be. I haven't been for a while now. I wanted to try and keep this one quite short and snappy, because I know my weekly vlogs always end up ridiculously long. So yeah, that is it for my little Manchester book haul. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear your opinions on any of these books, if you've read them, if you've heard about them, if you want to read them. So let me know down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!